All right, so diving into some pretty cool stuff that you sent over recently. It's really about this whole AI thing, but kind of a different angle than we usually see, right?
Yeah, definitely. Instead of just like chatting with a single AI, it's more about building, I guess you could call it a team of AI agents that can actually do things for you all right there on your own computer. Pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, it's like moving from like a basic assistant to a whole team of specialists, each with their own skill set. And the stuff you sent over, it really focused on how these AI agents can go beyond just answering questions. They can actually take action.
Right, and the key to that is tools. Like, imagine giving an AI the ability to browse the web or manage files or even interact with specific online services.
So like not just asking, hey, what's the best price on a flight to, I don't know, Paris,
Hmm.
but having an AI that can actually go to a booking website, search for flights, compare prices, and maybe even book it for you.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is the idea of creating custom tools. Like if you have a very specific need, maybe interacting with a database you use for work or pulling data from some obscure website, you could actually build a tool specifically for that.
So it's like giving your AI team a unique set of skills tailored to exactly what you need. But how do you actually go from having that tool to making it something an AI can use?
Well, usually it involves some coding. You'd write a function, maybe in Python, that defines what the tool does. Like for the web searching example, you might use a library to create a function that takes a search query, what you want to search for, and then returns a list of web links that are relevant.
Okay, so you have this code, this function that can do a specific thing.
Yeah.
How do you then tell the AI, hey, you can now do this?
Right, so that's where frameworks for building these AI agent systems come in. You basically define the agent and then you assign specific tools to it. So you're kind of telling the AI, look, these are the things you're capable of doing. And the framework handles all the background stuff, making sure the AI can actually use those tools when it needs to.
Got it. And the materials you looked at, they also mentioned that these agents often have defined roles and goals, right?
Yeah.
Like a researcher or an analyst. How does that play into all of this?
Yeah, the role and the goal are really important because they provide context for the AI. They help it decide when and how to use its tools. So, for example, if you have an agent whose role is financial analyst and its goal is to, help me make investment decisions, it's going to be way more likely to use a tool that can, I don't know, analyze stock data when it's presented with a question about investments, right?
So it's like instead of having a generic AI, you're building a specialized team where each member has a specific area of expertise and knows how to use the right tools for the job. Pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of the things that really stood out in the research you sent was this idea of like a universal language for AI tools. And they called it the Model Context Protocol, or MCP.
Yeah, MCP. I remember that. What's the big deal about that? Why is a standard like that important?
Well, it's like imagine if every tool had its own way of being used, right? It would be chaos. But with a standard like MCP, everyone's speaking the same language. So you're not stuck using tools from just one company or platform. You can mix and match, be way more flexible.
So more options, more possibilities. I like it. And something else you highlighted was this idea of running these language models, these AI brains, locally, using something called Ollama.
Right, so Ollama, it basically lets you run these powerful language models, like there's one called Gemma, I think, right on your own computer rather than relying on some, cloud service.
And why is that so beneficial? Why go through the trouble of setting that up locally?
Well, a couple of big reasons. First off, privacy. All the processing happens on your machine, so your data isn't going off to who knows where. And then cost, those cloud services, they can get expensive. Plus, running things locally, it can potentially be faster too.
So let me see if I got this right. You use Ollama to run a language model like Gemma on your computer. Then, using one of these development frameworks, you create your AI agents, give them specific tools, maybe using that MCP standard for compatibility, and this whole system, it's all running right there on your machine.
Yeah, you got it. And the cool thing is, from what I saw in the research, getting a basic system set up isn't actually that complicated. With a little bit of code, you can have an agent that can do real-world stuff powered by an AI running right there on your computer.
It almost sounds too easy. You just define what the tool does, tell the agent about it, and then tell the agent what you want to accomplish.
Pretty much. These new frameworks and standards, they're really trying to make the stuff more accessible so you can focus on the bigger picture, like what you actually want your AI team to do.
And the possibilities seem endless, right? I mean, we talked about booking travel, but the research also mentioned things like analyzing financial data, even explaining complex topics like neural networks.
Absolutely. And, for something like the Airbnb example, you could have an agent that's specifically focused on finding and booking accommodations. It would have tools for browsing the website, filtering results based on your preferences, price range, location, stuff like that, and then maybe even a tool to actually make the booking.
So you just tell it, hey, I need a place to stay in Rome next month. My budget is this much, and it takes care of the rest.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Exactly. And for something like explaining a complex topic, you could have one agent that's really good at finding information, like a researcher, and then another agent that's really good at breaking things down and explaining them simply, like a teacher.
And then they work together to find the info and then explain it in a way that makes sense. So cool. Now, the material also mentioned some pretty advanced features, like how these systems can remember the context of a conversation and even filter out unnecessary information, like website addresses in their responses.
Yeah, that stuff is really important for making these AI agents feel more, natural and helpful. The context handling, that usually involves the framework keeping track of what's been said in the conversation so far so the AI doesn't forget what you were talking about. And the filtering, that's often just the simple text processing thing where the AI learns to recognize and remove stuff that's not really relevant to the answer, like URLs.
So to wrap it all up, what we're talking about here is basically the ability to build your own team of AI specialists running right on your computer, each with its own set of skills and tools, all working together to help you get things done.
That's a great summary. It's really a whole new way of thinking about AI. Not just a single assistant, but a customizable team that you control and that can evolve as your needs change.
And that's what's so exciting about it. You can start with a few basic agents. Then as you learn more, you can add new ones, give them new tools, constantly expanding the capabilities of your system. It's really mind-blowing when you think about the possibilities.
Absolutely. It's like, the only limit is your own imagination. You can build a system that's perfectly tailored to your needs and workflows.
Yeah. So what about you? If you could create any AI agent right now, what would it be? What kind of skills would you give it? What would its role be on your team? Think about that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of AI.
Thanks for having me. It's been a fascinating conversation.